Yeah? You like the new one?
I do.
Thanks.
Why did it stop?
I didn't know we were live.
Oh, yeah.
My bad.
Of course we're live, man. What do you mean?
I didn't know. Let me take my vitamins. It was a vitamin, everybody. I'm alive! Usually, when you go live, you say, hey, we're going live.
No, you are correct. There is usually a, by the way.
So I use these on Wednesday night for my youth group. So I'm double dipping. I buy these from Download Youth Ministry. And they're good little warm-ups before we get going on Wednesday nights.
Yeah, I like them.
I like them too. This one was the Fall Countdown watercolors, and then I have another fall one. So, how you been? Obviously, you have shaven thy face. That's a picture of Josh and I.
Oh, man, we've been doing good. What's up, Jonathan?
Hey, Jono.
I just, I don't know, man. I don't have a mustache face. And the more I look at it,
you can have a beard, but you can have a mustache.
Correct.
Interesting.
And I guess that's just one of those old school rules of like professional dress that I don't know. I don't make the rules. I just follow them most of the time. So I just look creepy with just a mustache. So,
fun fact: almost everybody looks creepy with just a mustache. I had a teenager who had a really black fine one, and he was like, "I don't understand why everyone just thinks I look really creepy." And I was like, "Because you look really creepy. Like, what do you mean? Like, you literally have a creepy mustache going on, and you're complaining. Like, give me a break."
Yeah, Jonathan said, "Grow a Hitler mustache. That just doesn't make the corner of your lips there."
Nah.
I don't know. There's some pretty old school guys. I think we're the only association in Louisiana that doesn't allow facial hair. And I think they're kind of proud of being in that exclusive group. I will give them this. There are some other associations that allow beards, and they have these big, grown-out beards, and it does not look very professional. But there's got to be a medium. There's got to be a way that we can say, "Hey,
Well groomed."
We can have a well-groomed. I'm thinking about using a religious exemption request.
I think there you go. I think. I like. If you guys notice, we have a new logo. It's fall themed. Josh is looking. We don't.
I am looking. Let's say, do we? No, it's the same.
I think I'm gonna do No Shave November.
No shave, no.
I think I'll have a naked Sunday, which means that Tuesday I will be joining you in the no beard, where you shave everything off and you start fresh.
Yeah. So if I did that by the end of November, somebody would say, "Hey, did you forget to shave today?"
That's how long it takes you?
Yeah.
I'll have mine back by in 2 weeks in November.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, you can. This is true, Jonathan.
You can, but you can also say you ran a 5K and start at the end. You can also say you ran a 5K and just wear the t-shirt and not actually run it. The reason behind my philosophy of No Shave November, let me plug in here, and starting fresh, is because I remember when I could not grow facial hair, at all, and I was a naked face, and No Shave November gave me the courage and the rights to be able to look terrible starting and trying to grow facial hair because everybody did. And so my goal is to shave everything off and start fresh, look ridiculous, look terrible, so that if there's guys in my youth group or young college at church or something, that I can get to like try to do it and give them that excuse. Because it's like embarrassing, like in those starter phases trying to grow facial hair, like you've already gone through puberty, but it's like second face puberty, and it's terrible. So that's my philosophy is, hey, you shave it off, you start fresh, and you see what you can accomplish in a month with just growing facial hair. And that's also like how my dad and my brother all first grew our beards.
Nice.
Like legitimately, my dad was never a beard man until we did No Shave November 1 year, and then afterwards my mom said, "You're not shaving that. I like it."
And he said, "Yes,
and
ma'am."
He was like, "I like it too." Now he's a beard man.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Well, good morning, everybody. Glad you all are here with us today. This is Behind the Beards, where we pull the curtain back and take a look behind the scenes and reveal the things you need to know about the people who are called to lead your churches and your ministries. I'm Aaron Partlow. I'm the youth minister at the Pine Tree Church of Christ in Longview, Texas. And my naked face friend over here is Jay Fowler, the bedazzled king of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. One of my dearest and best friends. He's the preaching minister there at the Goodwood Church of Christ. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. It's weird being on this side of the intro.
That's right. Isn't it fun?
Yeah.
So you reminded me of something this morning. I watched the other day. I rewatched the newest Men in Black movie, the one with the guy who plays Thor and the Valkyrie lady. Like they just like came right afterwards. They're obviously playing off of that chemistry they had in the movie and how good they were. But in that, they go in one of these alien places or whatever, and there's a guy, and he's completely human, but the alien in the scene is his beard, and it just looks like a beard, and it's an alien that sits on his face. And I was like, man, how nice would that be for you right now? Is like if you could, instead of shaving, you just take that alien off and
I know, put it on, put it off.
So it was so funny, and as soon as I watched that, I went, "Ha ha ha! I should send that to Josh."
I am gonna have to go to like Party City or something and find me a good beard wig, because just so I can wear the rest of the week.
Right.
You were talking in the pre-show about the funky times in which that early stage of growth.
Right.
I remember spring sing my freshman year, Kappa Sigma Tau Panthers, Kappa Sigma Tau Hoop. We were the chickens, and one of our traditions was everyone grows a goatee for spring sing.
Oh man,
I was the only person in Kappa that could not grow a goatee. I had to paint one on for the show, so I didn't stick out like a sore thumb.
What a cool tradition! Like that'd be a lot of fun. Like everyone has the same facial hair for their spring sing show.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's kind of fun. That is cool.
Mine was makeup. I tried, man. I shaved like 2 or 3 times a day for a while, just trying to get something to grow, doing all those tricks that they say work.
Olive oil.
Too much Native American blood in me. I was probably 28 or 29 before I could grow any substantial facial hair. So
I didn't, everyone thinks you look at this amazing beard and it's thick and it's redness and it's beautiful. It's not that great. But, everyone like, man, you must have been able to have that forever. And yeah, same. I graduated college and all I could grow was a very weak goatee. It wasn't even that great. It wasn't until later that I could even grow. So yeah, I guess like 23, 24 was when my facial hair really came in thick.
Crazy stuff, man.
It is. Beards are weird. And that swings us into our topic today, because it doesn't at all. Today we're going to talk about mentors. I was thinking I just want to spread some positivity. Josh and I just like to take some breaks and some opportunity. Well, not that we don't spread positivity, that we need to take a break so we can do that. But just talk about like our lives and influences and people who have been super important to us and mentors and what a mentor looks like and what kind of effect they can have on your life and things like that.
Yes.
I thought you'd jump on in there.
Man.
Our chemistry is going really well.
No, my mind was in there just thinking about just in general. Man, I don't know. I've had so many mentors in my life.
Yeah.
And I was on my way in this morning, I was kind of thinking about this. And it's really intriguing to me how mentors function as a minister and how much that role has changed in my life. I never really... I think about it because I teach about it and I talk about the importance of it.
Right.
But no one's ever really kind of set me down and said, hey, who are your mentors? Do you have mentors?
Well, that's what we're doing today.
I know. And I'm racking my brain trying to figure it out. You have mentors?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Billions of them.
Billions.
I want to start like at the beginning. We think of like our first mentors and we think about those first people who had that effect on our lives. And there is an elderly man who, I don't even remember doing this, but we were sitting at church and we were singing a song or something. And I turned around because I was a little kid and I just smiled and waved at him. And his name was J.T. McClung. And he, typewriter, wrote me a letter and sent it in the mail to me. And I still have it today. And it is this wonderful letter that says, hey, you just brought so much joy to my life when I saw, a young person who was singing and worshiping God and wanted to share that joy by smiling and waving at me in the middle of church. And that kind of started that friendship, that relationship where, I enjoyed every Sunday giving JT a hug and talking with him. He was a preacher for a long time. He was retired. He was a widower, I think twice. And he had full of knowledge and super sweet. Was driving to church at like 99, kind of a thing. And, he always would write me letters. And I remember being in college and my parents giving him an update about how I was doing. And I would get a letter every once in a while from JT. And that would always make my day to know that there was somebody who I respected. I respected them for the life that they live. I respected them for the way that they carried themselves, for the attitude that he had. And some of the stories that he would tell would make me laugh. Because I would think of JT as like this high and mighty, this guy who would never do anything wrong. And he said, no, while I was at college, as a side hustle, he didn't use that phrase, but, as a means to make extra money, I hid a goat in my apartment. And he was like, I hid a goat in my apartment. And I would milk the goat and make other things with the goat stuff. And I would sell it to people. Well, he would make milk and soap and all sorts of stuff like that. And then he would sell it, and that was part of his, he would just, and he got in trouble and almost got kicked out of college because he had a goat in the apartments or wherever he was staying in college. And that just always made me laugh to think of JT being young and having a goat, and that would be your side hustle. And I think of people with side hustles today, and I just how funny would it be if you're like, yeah, my side hustle is I milk this goat and I sell soap and all this kind of stuff. But JT, he was always he was a big mentor in my life, and he didn't really have to do that much, but it was just like that encouragement that he gave me. He was proud of me for going to a Bible college. He was proud of me for every time that I preached, and he would help give me pointers and things that would make my sermons better, and stuff like that. And so I always appreciated that. So I try to think back, of one of my first mentors, and I would think JT is right up in there with one of my first ones.
Yeah, I had a lot of people that I really looked up to.
Yeah.
That I can think. I remember Dr. Stewart at the church that I grew up with, who would get up and pray, and like when he would get done praying, you had experienced something, almost something miraculous when he got through with his prayers. You can tell that he just didn't. They didn't tap him on the shoulder 2 minutes before service and say, "Hey, somebody's got the intercessory prayer. Can you fill in?" They didn't show up.
What prayer?
Intercessory. You don't know
Opening,
what intercessory
closing?
prayer is?
I don't know what that is.
No, an intercessory prayer is when you call for God to intercede on behalf of the people who are in need or dealing with health. Or
we call
so
that
we would
like
have
the
an opening
shepherd's
prayer. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah. You're speaking in cursive, Josh.
My bad.
I'm a millennial here. Next thing you're going to tell me you hang out in the vestibule.
In the vestibule, yes.
No
In
one
the
knows what
foyer.
those words are. Those are made-up church words.
Maybe so. But he just would, like, his whole self was in this prayer, and you could hear it, you could feel it. Even though they weren't my words, the way that he would bring in and just completely change your experience of prayer.
That's awesome.
And I remember just having many conversations with him about public prayer.
Wow.
And I had some teachers, but I think maybe I have trust issues. I don't know. The older I've gotten,
right,
the harder it is for me to really have mentors. I have people I call for advice.
Yeah.
But most of my mentors are probably people that are more my age.
Right.
And sometimes even younger. They're one of those people that mentors those people that push me to be better.
Right.
And sometimes they do that by asking questions. They do that by challenging. You've even served that purpose in a lot of ways. If you're saying something, you're like, "Yeah, I'm not really sure. What about this? What about this?" And instead of just kind of going with the flow, challenging to think deeper, to think differently, or to think more broadly in order to decide, are you taking the easy way, or are you really doing, what you should be doing? I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just a challenge for me to get to this place where, because in order for me to have a mentor, I've got to really open myself up and place myself in a vulnerable position there.
Yeah, that's true.
To really be
hard
open,
to do.
And it is hard to do. The mentors I've had in my life have been maybe a little more kind of surface level. In the car business, we had mentors, and they would show you the ropes. But most of the people who mentored me in my business career, they mentored me because their mentorship of me made them money.
Yeah,
it was for their advantage to do that. What becomes really difficult for me to find, not just as I get older, but as a minister, is to find a spiritual mentor who can. Can someone in your church be your mentor? I mean, they can, but you have to have a unique relationship for that to occur if you're preaching and teaching all the time. And that's been the real challenge for me, is to find someone that's more than just an advice giver.
Yeah.
That's going to really be that mentor that's going to put their arm around your shoulder and bring you through some difficult times, but also at your high times take you and kind of say, hey, now that you're here, you really need to think about some things so that things don't get out of hand in your mind and in your heart and in your spirit. So,
right. Well, I start to think about mentors I've had in my life, and I have a hard time finding anybody in my memory who was a real mentor in my life outside of church. To be honest, I feel like my life has always revolved around church in some way. It has been such a prominent part of my life, and it's such a prominent part of my life today, obviously, because I work in a church and I work for a church, and I love it. But, I ran cross country and stuff like that, but I never was really close to any of my coaches. I worked at a Jack in the Box, and I definitely, there was one guy who became a good friend to me, and he's still good friends to me today. Matter of fact, it's kind of funny to think that one of my managers from Jack in the Box, who helped hire me and make me a good customer service person, was in my wedding. So that's kind of funny to me to think about. But a lot of mine were people in the church. I think of a person who's had the most effect on my life and has shaped me. I think it's some of my core values and some of the core things that I think and how I think about stuff would be my youth minister growing up, right? How many people can think,
Right.
hey, my youth minister has really shaped me, which as sometimes terrifies me because I'm a youth minister. And so for people to go well, Aaron Partlow, he really shaped me to the person I'm in today. I'm like, oh man, how bad did I screw him up? I hope that they don't look at me, that they look towards Jesus, right? That's everyone's goal. But Ben Cook, and I can say that because he is no longer on social media anywhere, so I can talk about him all I want, and he'll never know. I'm just kidding. But Ben Cook, man, he was my youth minister. He was my youth minister. I didn't have anyone else before him. I didn't have anyone else after him. All sorts of stuff. I mean, he was my youth minister, and the way that he taught class, the way that he approached teaching class, is kind of the way that I feel like I go about teaching class. He allowed me to do things that that were pretty amazing. I was able to do an internship with Ben through my school. So my senior year, I'll never forget this. My senior year. Or my junior year. It was the end of my junior year. The principal calls all the juniors into this special assembly, right? And we're all in the theater, and she gets up on stage. She says, hey, the state has required for you guys to be the first class that you need to do a senior project. You won't be allowed to graduate unless you complete the senior project. You can't start your senior project until your senior year. And it was this big, at the time, it was this is a huge project. Now I'm this is silly. It's 2 internships, 1 essay, and a little portfolio. Literally, I could knock that out in an afternoon, kind of a thing, except for the internships. So I did one with another mentor, which I'll talk about in a minute. But both of mine with mentors in my life. I did one with Ben Cook because I was interested in youth ministry, and so I said, hey, would you mind if it wasn't an internship, I'm sorry, it was a shadowing. It was 2 shadowings you had to do, job shadow. So Ben said, yeah, next Thursday I have a youth ministers meeting at Cascade Christian College. Why don't you come with me to that and see what a youth minister meeting looks like and how we kind of approach and plan camp as a group of guys. And I was like, this is awesome. I cannot wait. And so sure enough, I got it approved. The school approved it, which was pretty amazing. And Ben picked me up from school, and I drove into Portland, and we did this. And then as part of that project, I had to plan an event. So I planned our next event to go to the cornfield maze, and because it was in fall. And so that was the event that I planned. And so that went in that portfolio, and I had to write an essay about how I planned it and how it went and all that kind of stuff. But that was a huge moment in my life. Ben spent many hours, I feel pouring into me and teaching me. He wasn't afraid to tell me when I was wrong. or tell me when I was being too much or dumb or any of those kind of things. But what I remember most about Ben's mentorship is his thoughtful advice and counseling that he would give me. And Ben was never one of those youth ministers that, and this is something that I really try to be, that sat in the back or, well, let me say this. He was not the youth minister who would sit in the group of kids in the middle of worship and be so involved in worship that he didn't pay attention. But he wasn't one of the youth ministers that would sit in the back that would be unplugged and be talking to everybody else. He would be sitting in a place where he could help and he was available to teenagers, but he was involved in worship or in the lessons or things like that. And you could always tell that he was available if you needed to talk, if you needed anything. But he was also always paying attention and listening, which always made discussions afterwards more meaningful and more powerful, and stuff like that. And so, I mean, he was a great, and he still is. Ben is still one of my all-time closest mentors. When we were in Washington, I was blessed to be able to be doing ministry near him, and so he mentored me through some really hard moments up there. He kind of kept my spirits high, and he also, this is what I needed the most, was he kept my focus on who I was serving. That even though I was having a hard time within a church, that I was still serving God, and he was leading me and guiding me in those ways, which was more powerful and what I needed. A lot of people, would say, yeah, that's messed up and that's crazy, and they would trash talk, the church and and all these kind of things, which made me feel good for a little bit. But Ben always had a way of like circling it back and saying and reminding me who I serve, reminding me of why I do youth ministry, and that it's for the kids and it's for Jesus and it's for this, and there's always going to be difficulties, there's always going to be these obstacles and things like that. So that was always really powerful to me. And so mentors have that big effect on my life.
Well, spiritual mentors are important. And if you look at, we were in 1 Thessalonians in our class this past Sunday.
What?
And I know you posted that, and I was like, man, we were just there too. In chapter 2, he's describing himself as a mentor to these Thessalonian Christians.
Yeah. And
if you look throughout, like Paul's writing, his constant complaint is that people are just complacent.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to stop growing. I mean, why are you content to be where you are? And I mean, I look at the pursuit of excellence in so many different aspects of my life.
Right.
Even in my officiating, we are every week we're watching film. How can we be better next week than we were this week? What did we do wrong? What did we do right? How can we capitalize on those things? When in our hobbies, we want to get better at those things that we do. If you're in a secular job, you want to continue to climb the ladder. I want to continue to make my house better. I want to continue to improve my vehicles and my portfolio and my retirement. And so we're looking for growth in so many aspects of our lives. Sometimes we forget to continue to work on the things that matter most, like our families and our spirituality.
Yeah.
And it's not a new issue. That's not something. Some people will say, look, man, we're just so busy these days and we've never faced these things before. And that's just not true, because Paul was writing the same thing to the church 2,000 years ago.
Absolutely.
And he was saying, why aren't you content in your spirituality? Like, you should be better than this. You should be growing.
Right.
And the mentors that I need are the people that will come to me and not allow me to be complacent in where I am spiritually. Contentment and complacency are very different in that aspect. Preston, who is here, he's one of those guys that asks questions that most people don't want to ask for one of two reasons. they either don't want the answer or they don't want to do the work of following up on the conversation that comes. And he'll ask me some difficult questions that I don't know the answer to and that I have to really go looking for. And there are a few of those people who will challenge me in that way. And I appreciate that. Mentors don't have to be people that are older.
No.
They don't have to be people that, are even much more mature. Mentors can be those people that just drive you to be better. It's nice when they've gone through it before. It's nice when they are older and they can come along and they say, hey, I want you to learn from my mistakes and my successes. And those are very valuable. And I was talking to some guys. I said, look, one of the reasons our churches are having issues right now is because we have issues in our homes. The divorce rate is not different in the church than it is in the world.
Which is wrong. There's a huge problem when that's the case.
And the biggest problem is there are so many successful marriages in our churches. Mm-hmm. We have tools. We have resources. We have this pool of people who have lived the Christian life successfully. And we aren't using those resources to continue to better those younger generations. And, we have to create mentoring programs and mentoring avenues where those people who have been through the process of raising children and who've been married for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years can impart that wisdom and share their experience with those who are coming up. Because ultimately that's what we're called to do over and over again, not just as people, but especially as Christians, is to continue to grow together. And that's my biggest challenge, is finding people who will challenge me spiritually to continue to grow and mature in the kingdom work, so that I can continue to be equipped to serve the church in the way that I'm called. Because, look, if my sermons don't change, if I don't grow,
right,
that's not good for my people. Mm-hmm. A lady came by. I think maybe I shared this, a few weeks ago, but a lady visited our church, and she came up to me afterwards and she said, Josh, I just want you to know, I came here right after you got here, and I hadn't been back since, so it's been like several years. But I just want you to know you have improved. And, at first I was kind of taken aback, like, I don't really know what to do with that. But then I was like, well, you know what? Thank you.
I hope so.
I hope I have improved. I hope I have grown. Because that's the goal, right? Is to grow and to mature and to keep looking for ways that we can be challenged and stretched.
Yeah. That's powerful. When we talk about that, and one of my all-time, and this guy, one of the best mentors I ever had in my life was for 6 years when I got to work with him, and it always made me laugh. Terry Kittson, right?
Oh yeah.
Kittson. That is the reaction I get no matter where I went. I always mentioned, I work with Terry Kittson. Oh, you know Kittson? This guy, he knows everybody. This guy knows everybody. This guy is, just talk about a guy doing the Lord's work. There are not enough good things that I could say about Terry Kittson. But God put him in my life. When we left Washington, we were beat up, we were bruised, we were damaged goods, and he put 5 elders around us who were going to love on us, care for us, shepherd us, and change our opinions of what good shepherds could be. And I just recently commented on a picture because I saw him and somebody was praising him, and I was like, listen, I got to write something here real quick. And I just praised them. And 2 of them have called me and been like, hey, you didn't even tag us. I didn't even see that. I just now saw that the other day, and thank you for that. And I was like, no, thank you. I should have said that to you guys to your face, and I probably have. But God also put Terry in my life, and I had not a lot of trust for preachers. Like that bridge was pretty well burned between me and Terry Kittson rebuilt that bridge, and he said, "Listen, every Monday you and I are going to go out to lunch, and we're just going to talk about ministry, and we're just going to talk. It's just a mentoring kind of thing, and we can talk about whatever you want." And I'll tell you what, some Mondays we talked a whole bunch. Other Mondays, like I don't even know what we did. We even talked about. We just ate and left. But it was consistent, and he was there, and I was there, and it was always meaningful. It was always good. It started off as one of those like, I don't trust this guy, and this is kind of weird. To, hey, I've got a problem. I'm just gonna see what Terry says before I make a step, And now, this is how much of effect he has on my life. Like now, I think, okay, what would Terry do in that scenario? And there's a lot of things in youth ministry, or if a parent's upset, or if something like that. He has affected me so much that I think that way. Like when
I'm gonna make you some bracelets that say WWTKD.
Right? It's amazing. Like I was just thinking the other day, there was a parent who was upset, and so they emailed me. Not upset at me, they were just concerned. I should say concerned. A concerned parent. And before I got all high and mighty and be like, "Oh, well, how dare you?" I thought, you know what? Terry used to always say this. Instead of judging somebody, he always said, "You know what? Their life, I will never understand what they have gone through or what they're going through, because their life is so dramatically different than mine. And so I'm going to approach it with a lot of grace and a lot of mercy, because even though I could say I understand, I'll never truly, fully understand, from where they're coming from." And so I stopped, and I prayed about it, and I just said, "Hey, let me explain everything to you." Later that day, that parent came up to me, gave me a big hug, and said, "Hey, thank you for taking the time and explaining that to me. I really appreciate that. That was really good." And I was like, "Thanks, God. Thanks, TK. Like, thanks for putting Terry in my life. I really appreciate that, And I just I love that man. Like he's done so much for me, and he's just been such a good mentor. I love that I could text him anytime now, and if I have a question or a ministry concern, and he's always willing to help out. And I think my point to that being is not just to sit here and just to praise Terry, but I think when we're talking about mentors and you're thinking about the effect that you have on other people's lives, it's that consistency, right? For me, it was that consistency. There was a lot of moments in my life where I could have seen a different side of Terry. There was a lot of high moments. There was a lot of low moments. And Terry was always consistent. There was a time when Terry and I butted heads really hard.
Yeah.
We were very frustrated. And I remember being so mad at him and him being very frustrated at me. And he came outside and he gave me a giant hug. We prayed about it. And we said, we are not allowing Satan to control and take this away from us or distract us. And we prayed. And we prayed and we hugged it out. And we entered as brothers. And that passage in where Jesus says, you go, if you have fault against somebody, you go to him so that you gain a brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew without a doubt in my mind that at that moment, that Terry Kittson was my brother. That he was not putting himself on this pedestal above me or any moment like that, but we were the same, and that we were brothers, and we were wanting the same thing. And that's probably been one of the most powerful moments in my entire life, was that moment. And that was Terry Kittson. And that is Terry Kittson. And that's his attitude, and that's who he is. And I always remember the phrase that he tells me too. remember the cross.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the cross. And his whole point by that is when you are struggling and wrestling, when there is some bad stuff going on in your life, when you feel beat up and torn down, remember the cross. Remember what Jesus endured for us. That separation, that pain, that beating, and that promise. And so we remember the cross.
Yeah.
And so don't give me a bracelet that says, what would Terry Kittson do? Give me a bracelet that says, remember the cross. That's what I want. And that was, and so that to me is like the core of mentorship is consistency. And so you have somebody who takes the time and the effort to keep you on pace and keep you on track, who will tell you what you need to, or can tell you what you need to hear, but will tell you what you really need to hear, But then also somebody who's going to be consistent in their demeanor and their manner. They're not going to be like, hey, you should do what Jesus wants you to do, and then all of a sudden be like, burn them down, kind of that idea.
Our temptation is to round ourselves.
Yes, that's what I've been practicing. I'm gonna go get some pizza for lunch. Continue my rounding process.
Our temptation is to surround ourselves with
that too.
People who are like-minded, who think differently, and who aren't going to challenge my status quo.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: there are plenty of people in my life who are more than happy to disagree with me.
Right.
But they are happy to disagree with me because they like conflict, or because they are trying to convince me that their way is better than my way. Mentors are not afraid of disagreement. But the purpose behind the disagreement is not around persuasion. It's around betterment. It's about improvement, and it's about growth. And that's what I value most, is someone who I know, because they have demonstrated that they are not afraid to disagree with me when they do disagree, and we can have conversations, around those things, that when they come in and bring me kind of a word of encouragement, or, man, that was really good, or I like that, it means so much more because I know it's genuine. And so much about this comes in, you have to know yourself to know what you need in a mentor. Like, for myself, I know that I have trust issues. I know that I always feel like when someone comes and asks me for something, or even brings me a compliment, the first thought in my mind is they want something from me. That's a personal issue that I have to deal with, but I know that about myself.
Right.
And so what I need people who will challenge me, who will come up and demonstrate that the only thing they want is for us to be better together, and they have my own well-being in mind.
Yeah.
And like you said, that comes with consistency. That comes with those people who are there all the time. Somebody can't just show up out of the blue and say, by the way, I got something for you.
Right.
It's probably falling on deaf ears. But the consistency, the presence, and the vulnerability is what gets us to a place where we can really and truly begin that path of growth. So,
that's amazing. I think our behind the beards moment is this concept of learn what it takes to be a good mentor by people who have been good mentors in your life, and if you're not pointing them towards God or Jesus and what He is calling people to do, there's a serious look of what how we're mentoring other people. We have that effect on people's lives, and we must strive, to do that and to be better at being mentors, wherever you are in church.
And I think, if you want to bring it just to kind of the ministry staff and leaders as well, one of the things that is really easy to lose sight of is Your ministers, your pastors, your shepherds, your leaders need mentors.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think as ministers we don't think of it very often, but as people who are following leaders, we don't think about our leaders needing leaders. And as we mentioned before, you don't have to be more educated. You don't have to be older. You don't have to be more experienced to be a mentor. You can be someone that's just present, that is consistent, and that is always willing to have those difficult conversations that create that space for us to grow. And so, you never know when you're going to be in that place to be a mentor, even for your leaders,
Right.
and give them the space to do that, because particularly in that environment, it's hard for us to be vulnerable with the people that we're called to lead, because we don't want to appear weak.
Right.
And when they're given that space to do that, your leaders will become better leaders when you give them the freedom to do that. So it's good. It's been a good conversation.
That's good.
Now it's my turn. Man, all these different roles. As always, when we close out, we do want to remind you of Galatians chapter 6 and verse 9. Do not grow weary in doing good.
That's right.
I don't ever get tired of hearing that verse. I don't get tired of hearing that verse because every day I find myself kind of being tired of doing good stuff. It's hard. It's hard. Life is messy. This world is messy. And we're going to challenge you to do something good in Jesus' name. So until next week, I am Josh. This is Aaron. We'll see you next week on Behind the Beards.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
What?
Oh,
What?
John Dobbs. It's good to see you, John. John's one of the guys that I go to for a lot of advice at times when things get a little messy on my end.
What?